Do it. What up, everybody? Welcome to the Open Source Entrepreneur Podcast. My name is Casey Green. This is my esteemed co-host, Jimmy Norlander. And tonight, Jimmy and I are super excited to come to you live like we do almost each and every Thursday. But more importantly, we are excited to kind of reintroduce the Open Source Entrepreneur Podcast. Part of the trickiness about doing a live podcast is sometimes certain people forget to get the recording of the initial podcast. And so Jimmy and I thought it'd be a perfect opportunity tonight to basically break down who we are, why we're doing it, and just kind of reintroduce ourselves. So really, really excited to be with you here for the next little bit. For those of you who have been with us for the last couple of podcasts, thank you for joining us and returning to be with us. And we hope we have a ton of new people joining us so that we can talk all things business. If it's okay, Jimmy, I think an appropriate place to start out would be like why we decided to start the podcast. Jimmy and I both have a passion for business, and we both come at it from two different angles. I'm very much what's called a serial entrepreneur, right? Like I help companies grow from the inside out. And Jimmy is a serial entrepreneur. And Jimmy, I don't know if you set out to be an entrepreneur when you grew up, or if that's something you just kind of stumbled into as your practice grew.
Dude, it's something I think I've always wanted. Even when Tangi and I, before we got married, or when I went to school, I was planning on coming home from, getting grad school and working in the correction field, but owning group homes. That was my main
Oh,
goal because that's what I worked in most of college.
interesting. Yeah, so Jimmy, for those who don't know what you do, break it down for them. Like, talk to them a little bit about your career, how it started, where you started, and ultimately what led you to the path you're in currently.
So, yeah, do mental health, outpatient mental health counseling, so work with depression, anxiety, trauma, abuse. Went to school to be actually going to school to be a
Oh,
doctor. And I was just sitting in a social work class one time, and you just had that gut feeling, hey, time to change things up. So I went in, changed up the major. I was actually working in group homes. I started working in group homes just to get through college, juvenile sex offenders. Worked with them, worked with gangs and drugs. Um, Went up to grad school, worked in corrections, so that's the only thing that I knew.
okay.
And came home, put my app that those jobs that everyone promised you is always going to be there wasn't there. So just applied everywhere, started doing hospice, and then it just told I don't know, Tandy and I, my wife just I'm like, hey, I want to go out on my own. Um, Miriam, a good friend, she had her own private practice, and she's like, hey, this is what I would do. So she helped me get going on it, and then it's just kind of taken off since then. But it wasn't easy, that's for sure. I think it took 6 or 7 months before I got my first client.
Holy smokes. So a lot of perseverance. Like I want to backtrack just a little bit because if you guys are paying attention, Jimmy was not like taking and working on like easy jobs, right? I mean, you're talking sex offenders, you're talking gangs. Like this was not an easy path for you to walk. So like it's super intriguing to me, and like we'll dive a little bit more into that. But how do you feel like some of those more difficult situations set you up for a really good path to success? And for those of you who don't know, I'm actually gonna and I don't know if Jimmy's too humble or not, but I'm gonna brag on Jimmy just a little bit. Jimmy has taken his business to extremely new heights. He now has crossed a seven-figure evaluation on his business. And so it's a massive congratulations for Jimmy on the next step of where he's headed in his journey. He has offices and clinics all up and down not only the Wasatch Front, but is now down to Southern Utah and St. George. And there's are you up in Idaho? You up in Idaho or close to being in Idaho?
No, that's the plan for the next six months to a year.
So some expansion up in Idaho
Yep.
and even potentially farther south, which I won't divulge
Yeah.
that because that's kind of in the works as well. But Jimmy's just growing at an astronomical rate. And tell me a little bit, Jimmy, why and how some of that early, like really kind of adversity and dealing with heavy things has led you to be successful and have that perseverance.
I let's see with the heavy things. I don't know. That's a tough question. Um, it, I have to give some thought on that one because yeah, I mean with heavy things, you're working with gangs, drugs, juvenile sex offenders, it kind of opens your eye up for everything. But also a lot of people when they get in those type of environments, they just want to stop, which you
Yeah.
don't blame them also, because you're in a rough hood, sometimes some not so good people. but I think it's just the perseverance is just go, 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 go. Because at the end of the light, like, hey, I'm going to have my degree, my school's going to be all paid for. This is why I do what I do. Is what made it worth it. And I enjoyed the corrections too, because you got a hardcore gang member and working with them, but also seeing their own change in their life. And same with the sex offenders, where society, is like, hey, let's just throw them off into the wolves. I've seen so many changes in them, and I think that's where it's also just don't give up on people.
Oh, I love that. Don't give up on people. I think as a society, it's really easy for us to write people off, right? To be like, hey, listen, a lot of societies become very transactional, right? Like we can hang out, we can be buddies, but as soon as like it's not a give and take, you're cutting them out of their life, right? It's become very transactional. I think we give up on people far too quickly.
Oh, I agree. I agree. And I think even with them, sometimes some people are going to fail five, six, seven, eight times. And there's just that aha moment where it
Yeah,
just clicks. And that's where you can start seeing the change
yeah.
in them.
So you mentioned a little bit about school, Jimmy. I would love for you to kind of unfold what it looked like for you to go to school, and ultimately how you got. I mean, you kind of told us about your past, but what did school look like for you? Where did you go? And talk to us kind of about how you got into therapy, like into being a counselor.
So school, yeah, I just went to start off at Snow College, so a 2-year community college. That's where I started working the gangs and drugs. I think that's where the spark of okay therapy, because I'd sit in therapy sessions with them, and then sitting in some therapy social worker classes is when that gut feeling came in. Okay, got to change things up. But as I worked through, I was still working, 40 hours a week, 21 credit hours, worked graveyard swing shifts and just worked hard. All the way through my bachelor's, went to Snow College, got my bachelor's of social work, and then just kind of decided, okay, what do I want to do from here? And I knew I still wanted to be a therapist. Not sure. Like I said, I wanted to work in corrections, and then I knew I needed a master's for that, and I knew if I didn't get my master's then, I was never going to get it.
Yeah.
So just went straight from my bachelor's to my master's, and I did an accelerated program where it took me 9 months to get my master's,
Okay.
and up there just worked with corrections.
That's crazy. And so there's like if you guys are listening to Jimmy, right? He's always kind of had that spark of like just go mode, right? Like you were grinding through college, you were like working full time, school full time, went right from a bachelor's to a master's. I think we see that pretty frequently with a lot of entrepreneurs. There's an underlying like grind, right? I actually heard somebody talking today on I don't remember Instagram or TikTok or something, and they talked about how people who are highly driven always feel like they haven't made it. They don't celebrate victories. They don't like. There's just always something. They're always looking for the next thing. Do you feel that way when you're building your business, Jimmy? Are you like there's never a destination to arrive to?
No, you I didn't. When I started my own private practice, I remember getting my first client like, this is great. If only I could have five a
Yeah,
week. And then you hit five a week. I'm like, okay, bills are at least being paid. If only I could have 10 a week, 20 a week, 30 a week, 100 a week, 150 a week, 200 a week. It's just, you're constantly just want in growth mode because
yeah,
one, you have people who are dependent on you. You got 15 other therapists that you're trying to provide for so they can provide for their family. And then also it's just that growth. I think it's when I got my Sandy office open, so my second location, where it's like, okay, I could do this. And then it's just like you just want to be great at what you do, and
yeah.
and expand too. I mean, I want to be the biggest, not just the biggest, but the best, most ethical counseling center there is. I just want to help as many people as I
Yeah,
can.
and I think, and that's something that I've learned a lot in business is that people who are into like for self-service, you're never going to go anywhere. The people who seem to grow the most, who have the most success, are always looking for ways to give back. And I think that's something that's really, really cool, Jimmy, that is just woven into the philosophy of your businesses. It's not how can I open another clinic, it's how can I reach maximum capacity in those clinics because that means that we're helping the most amount of people possible. Jimmy, I would love for you to expound on that just a little bit. Um, do you feel like you've seen exceptional growth because you are looking to serve people? It's not about putting money in your pockets, it's about serving people.
Oh, 100%. I like looking at different areas where maybe people aren't being helped. And that's what got me started in the auto accident world.
Oh,
And
interesting.
then and then even with like our geriatric population, special needs population, it's just a population that was underserved, especially with the geriatric and special needs. And then with the auto accidents, here are people who've been in a traumatic um, a car crash and they don't have the finances for therapy. And so you work through their settlement issue. I mean, for me, I don't get paid sometimes till 1 to 4 years after the case,
Wow.
or after they've come. So I had a case I was just settled 5 years ago, so I get the
Holy
check.
smokes.
But it's something that people need, So someone that was in a horrible accident where life was taken, and they feel like they just can't drive anymore. So it's finding that niche of, okay, if I can help them, I'm going to help them.
Yeah, and you point out something really important. As a matter of fact, Brant with Ecos Holistic Healing joined us. He was on our podcast a few weeks ago, and Brant mentioned something similar as well. Like you found that purple cow concept, right? You're like, where is the industry not like? Where is there a hole, right? And where can I plug that? And it's very much sounds like you found an amazing niche. Like, is there anything on the horizon where you're like, you know what? I don't see anybody like serving this particular niche. Is there any like secrets you can give us? Is there anywhere you headed next?
It's funny. So I thought the same thing with auto accidents, where, I've been doing it for 11 years and like eventually someone's going to come in and catch on. No one has.
Interesting.
There's been only one other company that's come in, and the way they run it is called lien. You hold on to your lien, meaning you keep it until the case settles. They don't hold on to theirs because they want to get paid quicker.
Oh,
And so, that's my niche that I have. I'm trying to think of other ones that I have that I want. I can't think of anything yet, but it keeps changing also.
yeah.
So, it used to be, pornography and addiction, where people were seeking for therapy with specialization in that. And then
Mm.
other therapists started doing that. And then marriage counseling, faith transition, then other therapists started doing that. And so I think it's you catch it as it comes, and then kind of try looking ahead and be like, okay, I want to get that before it gets big. Like
Yeah,
I should say psychedelics. Like psychedelics is one that I'll most likely start really studying too, because I could see that on the horizon as the next type of therapy.
yeah. How do you say, I think that's very, very important when you talk about business and you talk about, whether you're an entrepreneur like me or an entrepreneur like Jimmy is, how do you keep your eye kind of like on what's coming up, right? What's trending in your industry? Where do I need to move? Right? Because like I am telling you, and I tell people all the time, you will win with like speed to action, right? And so how do you keep an eye on what's coming, what's coming in your industry?
Yeah, I just kind of look follow the news. And I think you see what's working out there. Usually people are doing things, say like psychedelics. It was illegal in almost all the states, and now a lot of states are starting to make it legal. And it's kind of looking that way, be like, okay, this really helps people.
Yeah,
And ketamine was another one. Ketamine used to be a big no-no, and now people are starting to realize for their depression and anxiety under controlled substance, it can really be helpful. So as things coming, kind of looking at that and thinking, okay, could I take this to help more people and grow, or is this something that's going to die
yeah,
out? Almost like Bitcoin. You know what I mean? How many people now are kicking their butt thinking, oh, if I only I would have bought a Bitcoin. But there's a lot of people that looked at it like, oh, that's not going to become anything. It's taking that risk to do it.
yeah. Yep. So you gotta take that action, right? Basically what it boils down to, I think when you're looking to grow anything, it's like, cool, like let me take action, right? Like, and just because you jump into something, you're like, I think it's actually gonna be some psychedelics. What's the worst case scenario if you're wrong? Very, very little, right?
Yep.
Like at the end of the day, you're like, cool, like that wasn't a thing, that's okay. Let me course correct and do something different, right? And I think it's always really good to test things. You just never know what's going to land, right? And so it's like, cool, let me dabble a little bit here and let me dabble a little bit there and see which one takes. And I think frequently we are far, far, far too afraid to fail at something. I think we're afraid of looking like a fool. I think we're afraid of like, what it might do to our family, to our kids, to a project at work, right? Like, but at the end of the day, you got to try something new, right? Otherwise, you're going to get the same exact results.
Well, you have to
And I
be
think
ready
that's,
to fail.
yeah,
Like, go in wanting to accomplish the world, but also be ready to be like, hey, this might be
Yeah.
new. So if this doesn't work, I mean, I think Elon Musk is a perfect example of that. He went in thinking everything was going to fail, but yet he believed in something, and look where he's at now.
Yeah. So that brings up an interesting point, Jimmy. How do we deal with failure? How do because I'm assuming that there's a ton of people that come to you that actually have a lot of their mental blocks in place because of failures that have happened in the past. How do you conscientiously help coach somebody through overcoming like failure in their lives?
I think it's looking kind of one why they're afraid to fail. You know, there's something in that span of life that stopped that growth part. It could be, maybe a teacher saying you'd never be good enough. A
Yeah,
parent, saying you're not going to become anything, or just their own self-confidence, afraid just to get out our comfort zone. I always tell people like our bodies are naturally lazy. If we could all sit home, watch TV, and eat crap all day, we would.
yep,
If going to the gym was really easy, everybody would do it. And
yeah,
so, same thing with failure, I mean, if you want to overcome it, my biggest thing is you got to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And if you want to overcome it, it's just taking those baby steps, like, okay, what can I do just to challenge myself?
yeah, yep. I love that. Um, that's really, really intriguing. And I do want to shout out if anybody has any questions that they'd like Jimmy to answer, please make sure you drop those in the comments and we'll get to those as always. Jimmy's a wealth of information. And although we're talking some business, we also do want to be conscientious that people do want some of your advice, Jimmy. So if you're struggling with some depression, anxiety, grief, we recently had a pretty big family experience that has created a lot of grief in our family. And how do we overcome that? And so if you have any questions for Jimmy, drop those in the chat and we'll get to those. Jimmy, talk to me a little bit about how you build, how do you market your industry that you're in, right? How do you get your name out in front of people? Because that's one thing that's never going to die with any business that you start, right? Is getting attention.
Hmm.
How do you get attention for Deseret Counseling?
Oh, it's just grinding. When I first started, I wasn't getting home till 11 o'clock at night. And so I was going from office to office to office to office, introducing myself, what I did, and just it's about knowing people. And once you know that one person becomes two, that person becomes three. And I think with the knowing people, it's not just, hey, here's my business card, call me. It's forming a relationship with that
Yeah.
individual. And that takes work. And that takes if you walk into an office and they say no, it's okay to go back and say hi again.
Yeah, and
So,
I think people frequently think that no is like an indefinite thing, right? No typically means not right now, right? Let's try again a little later, right? You never know what somebody's going through. You never know what the position somebody's in, but frequently like if you ever had a really persistent kid, right? Like you can tell them no a bunch, but
yep.
they will come back and ask you again, right? Like no is not the end all be all. And it's really funny. Like I used to be this way too. I would take no very personally. And it like almost like hurt my feelings. Like, how dare like you tell me no in this particular instance, right? But I think as I've grown in, well, I know as I've grown and matured in my career, it's like okay, no just means maybe not right now, right? Like let's revisit this thing. But I don't think it's ever. I think you nailed it, Jimmy. I don't think it's ever bad to invest in human capital, right? I think it's always good to network. I think it's always good to there's a total like I'm telling you over the last I don't know 2 months, 3 months, I've had like three or four maybe five. I'd have to go back and count, but at least three to four like side hustles I've done for people because they're like, hey, like I know like somebody referred me to them, right? And so that's part of like building that relationship with people, like networking and making sure that you're like, let me give back. As a matter of fact, most of the work that I've done is like just been because I wanted to give back, right? And maybe there's a day I'll play at a higher level with them, but I'm like, cool, this is something I can do for you. Let me just give back. So talk to me, Jimmy, about um, kind of your experience when you're building things, you're going to visit people, you're networking, right? Like talk to me about the power of like giving.
Oh, it's all about giving. If it's about the money, you're in the wrong business. I mean, our ultimate goal is to make
Sure.
money, let's be honest. But if you're doing it to get the dollar, then you might as well just not start at all.
Yeah.
There's something about giving that I think just seeing, helping people, putting a smile on someone's face, just knowing that you did good. just I think is contagious. And when you see that, it just makes you want to work harder and just keep on helping.
Yep. And I think for you and I, that's part of the reason we started this podcast, right? Is because eventually, right, we hope to have a voice large enough that we can really help people with their businesses. We can get more exposure. We can get more airtime for them. We can get them on social media. We can do all these things that will help grow their business. Yes, obviously, we love to talk business, but we want people to be successful. And we believe that we can do so together as a community. And there's that saying that I always forget, but it's something about the rising tide raises all boats, right? Like if we all go in this together, we all share our secrets, we all talk to each other, we all uplift, everybody's going to be better because of it.
Yep.
And I think that's really, the fundamentally why, you have two monkeys like me and you who are like, you know what? Like whether it's good, bad, or otherwise advice, we want to get out there and talk to people and share their stories.
So what makes you want to give up? Let me ask you that.
Oh,
Oh, sorry, my thing just fell over.
yeah,
Oh,
I
this is
love it.
definitely live. Oh, that's not it either. Let's see where we at.
Elf on the Shelf. I think that was Elf on the
Ah,
Shelf.
oh,
Yep,
there we
still going
go.
the
There we
wrong way.
go.
This is
Ah,
perfect.
whew.
This is perfect. So part of the reason that I love to give back, like at the end of the day, I always forget about the thumbs up thing. At the end of the day, for me, it is
We could do
about
that. So,
something very, very similar to you, Jimmy. It's about how I can help people feel, right? Like if I can help them feel better, if I can ease a burden, if I can create a relationship. I'm a people person by nature. I love to be with people. I love to help them feel good and help things like move along in their lives, right? So for me, it's about their progression. And like just inevitably when you help somebody, you're either going to learn something new or you're also going to feel good on the back end. And so I don't want to say it's a greedy thing for me, but I love the way I feel when I give back, right? So for me, it's like a little shot of endorphins and I just feel good. I don't know how to explain it otherwise. But when you have the opportunity to help somebody, oh man, I love it, right? And so for me, it's a matter of fact, I stopped keeping track a while ago. I should revisit my sheet, but back on my birthday a year ago, uh, not quite a year ago, about my birthday in May, however many months ago May was, I actually created a sheet where I wanted to help 1,000 people throughout the course of the year, right? Mostly to get me in the attitude of just like being conscientious of people around me, making sure that their needs are met, making sure I can put smiles on faces, making sure I can. This is a dumb one, but like I remember a lady was loading her kids up in the car after getting groceries, and she was away from the cart return, and they were little kids. I'm like, let me just take your cart for you, and just that moment of like relief that she had on her face of like, oh good, I just put my kids in my car, I don't have to worry
mhm.
about taking the cart back, was awesome, right? And I just think I want to be far more conscientious of people around me, right? I want to be far more conscientious that I was talking to my daughter the other day. We had a big event happen in our family that was devastating for our family. And we stopped time for a week to take care of the situation. At the same time, there was everybody else in the world that had no idea that things just kept moving for them, right? It was just regular school, regular work, their worries about bills, their worries about whatever. Our world was upended. And so for me, when I look at people, you never know what they're going through. You just never know. And so if I can be that bright spot for like 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, I want to be that bright spot.
Have you, have you always been that way? Like, where did that come from?
So yes, I've inherently been kind of a people pleaser most of my life. I like honestly, and if I like did some deep therapy with you, Jimmy, you would probably say it's because I was like hiding some insecurities, right? I grew up a big kid. I've always been kind of on the larger side of things, and so I tried to be very friendly and gregarious and funny to mask some of like me being a bigger person, right?
Hmm.
But I realized along the way that like I like the way I felt when I was nice to people. I like to create connections. I like the way that I made other people feel when I was able to serve them. And so I think from the beginning, it probably started as a coping mechanism a little bit, but has since kind of become like one of my superpowers, right?
So I mean, we've talked about me a lot, but with you, let's kind of put on you like with the giving part, with the work that you do now. Explain to everyone what you do and then how giving has helped with that.
Yeah, so I've had a better part of 20 years in marketing, some to some extent, right? And so for me, marketing has been a really cool. First and foremost, like I'm creative. I love to be creative, right? I love to be witty. I love to be able to help people's take people's products out into the world, right? And so currently I'm a marketing director for a company called Healthy Home. We're a direct sales company out of Orem, Utah. And really one of the cool things that I get to do is I get to marry my creativity with that of like helping people, right? So one of the core products that we sell, well, we sell a handful of products, but essentially it's to make you a healthier, more happy, vibrant person, right? To give you better health. It's supplements, it's nutraceuticals, right? It's things that will allow you to, to be healthier and a better person, right? I don't know how else to say it. But for me, it really combines my two love of like helping people and being creative, and so it's a perfect fit for me. I don't remember what your initial question was. Did I
Just
answer
how
it?
know how giving at what you do, but then how does
Oh yeah,
giving kind of help with it?
yeah. So for me, like when I look at marketing, right, I get the chance to say, I have a product of some sort, right? And most of the people that I help have a product of some sort. And ultimately, that product can make their life better, right? So I love the opportunity that I have to say, let me give back not only to this company, but to like the potential consumers and say, I have a product, it's going to make you better. Let me get that in front of you, right? Then from there, for me, the creative part and the fun part is like, how do we do that, right? It can be very like I don't want to say new school anymore, but it's like social media, it's digital marketing, things like that. However, there are some industries where you're like, cool, we actually have to go belly to belly. We have to go build those relationships. We have to do word of mouth. We have to get out there and we have to like make things happen. And so I love the creativity where I'm like, okay, does this necessitate me, operating a campaign where it's like totally digital? Does it necessitate like a more like traditional approach? Is it a grassroots movement? Like, what are we working with? And then building plans to make that happen, if that makes sense.
It does. So what made you get into it then?
Oh man, so like initially, so initially, I when I graduated from school, we have two kids. I had both my kids by the time I graduated from school, and so I was looking for a degree to get through really, really quickly. And so naturally, I chose like mass communications, which is a fairly blanket degree. If you're like, cool, I'm either going to go into PR, communications, or marketing, right? Now I was a silly goose, and my emphasis was on public relations. But what it did is it got me in the door with a couple different companies to work in the marketing department. And so once I got in the door of the marketing departments, I was able to learn kind of like certainly there was like principles from school, right? But it was a lot of like school of hard knocks, right? Like growing up inside the industry, learning the industry, and really just saying, okay, this is where I'm thriving, right? I'm thriving because I love the endorphins I get from being creative. I love the endorphins I get from creating a promotion or something that goes live and you make I mean, at one point in time, I was running a promotion that did like $55 million in the span of like 3 months. And so I'd like the thrill of like operating something that like just goes really, really well is like it was really appealing to me. And so for me, that really like kind of really cemented my love of like marketing. But consequently, the older I've gotten in my career, I equally love the failures. It's not always fun on the back end, right? Where you're like, oh my gosh, I was counting on a specific amount of revenue, it didn't come. But the lessons that you can learn and then implement something new the next time is like a really cool learning experience, right? So I think every promotion that I've had or every marketing campaign I've had that's like either done good or bad, I've learned a lesson and been able to implement like the change and strategy for the next one. So for me, it's always kind of a learning process as well, which is a lot of fun for me.
But you talk about change in strategy. I mean, with my field, depression's always be there. There's history and depression, anxiety, things like that.
Yeah,
With yours, communication, marketing is constantly changing. I
all the
mean,
time.
my if someone would have told you, hey, Casey, when you get done with school in 10 years, guess what? We're going to be Instagramming living for marketing or, X or Facebook. So with yours, one, how do you build a relationship in such a high-tech world? And two, how do you stay up above the game? Because it changes so fast.
Yeah. So I think as far as like staying current, right? For me, I do a fair amount of digestion of like, well, first and foremost, I look at like what's happening in the world right now, right? Like where are people hanging out? So for me, it's like cool. I do spend a lot of time on like Instagram, TikTok, YouTube to a certain extent. I do a lot of podcasts, right? I listen to like industry leaders and thought leaders a lot, right? So a lot of like Gary Vee, Alex Ramosi, people who are Cody Sanchez, people who are just really big inside of the digital marketing space, right? What are they doing? What concepts are they doing? And fortunately, these people are people who give back as well. And so they're like, cool, I did this thing, this worked. I should like let the whole world know about it, right? So certainly a lot of like watching of industry leaders is super important. If you can get to, and there's a variety of different, conventions or things you can attend to even broaden your scope a little more. There is a certain amount of like gut feeling to stuff, right? Like you have to understand the audience you're
Hmm.
marketing to. And so you're like, okay, if I'm going to go into a market that is, or if I'm marketing a product that's inherently for like older people, right? Um, Even if you do take like a swing or a stab at social media, right? It's like, cool, they're probably going to be on like Facebook, and not necessarily on TikTok, right? And so like it's kind of like understanding your audience and trying to find out like where they're going to be at. Um, I'm trying to lots of books, right? Like books, podcasts, live events. Um, yeah, like those are the most effective ways I think in kind of an ever changing digital marketing realm. Certainly there's like continuing education, right? Like I was just looking at a class up at the U that is all about AI, right? And like how to harness the power of AI, and so it's really just kind of keeping a pulse on what's going on, right? In the industry, it's for me, it's like you can spend a lot of time on social media, like doom scrolling, or you can like follow people who are thought leaders and industry leaders, and traditionally I'll choose like the thought leaders and industry leaders, right? And kind of operate that way. And then what was the other question you asked me?
How do you keep up with it? I
Yeah,
think you just answered
so,
that too.
yeah. Same thing, right? Like I consume a large amount of social media, probably more than I
So
probably should.
So here's the thing too is, being with social media, you know, you have to be on social media to understand social media. So
Yep.
with you, with growing businesses and have to be on social media consistently, how do you balance that without being like today's society, how we're constantly on our phone, Instagramming, Facebooking? How do you do that, separate that from your business job and then also have that family life at the same time?
Yeah, and to be honest, like it is easy to have a tilted balance
Hmm.
towards like being on your phone. As a matter of fact, like I've told my wife before, I'm like I'm just checking on things for work, right? And it really had like I don't know if a better way to say it than at the end of the day, it just like you have to set up some boundaries,
Yep.
right? You have to be like, all right, I'm like, and by the way, I'm not always great at it. It's like, okay, I'm at home, like I need to be at home, right? Or like and I try to get to a spot. I'm not always perfect at it, but like I'll try to get to a spot where if I have to open something for work, I'll try to let like my wife know, right, and be like, I'm just checking on this thing for work, or I'm like, this is what I'm doing to try to like tell her, right, to create some context. But it is hard, right? It is hard, and I see more and more like kids addicted to phones, more and more adults addicted to
Hmm.
phones, right? And like I get it, right? Like um, there's something easy and mindless about just jumping on and like scrolling and liking something. It does also create a very dangerous situation where you start to like compare yourself to other people, right? And so you have to watch out for that as well. I try to be, I don't want to steal time from work, and so if I'm going to be on, social media, like as part of like marketing, right? You have to see what your competitors are doing, right? So I get on, I'll scroll through, I'll see what the competitors are doing. Are we at least up to par, if not doing better than what they're doing, right? And then when you're done, put it down, right? I know there's a variety of things you can do. Some suggestions people have had, like you can put timers, right? Like you can turn your the
Screen
screen time
time.
will like block you out. Yeah.
Let's
There's
all
that.
admit that doesn't work because we know our own
You
password. So
could
it's
just go right
like,
past it,
do
right?
do
Like
do
just
do.
right
Let's
past
do
it.
it again.
I did hear somebody the other day. Somebody told me that and I did try it. I didn't leave it on for very long because it was kind of annoying. But you can actually turn your phone to like a grayscale. There's like a setting, at least on iPhones, we can go in and turn everything to a grayscale. So there's like no color, right? And like
Really?
scrolling through social media with no color is really stupid. It's really boring. Um,
Hmm.
and so that doesn't last long. But I think more and more people are. It's like about boundaries, right? It's about saying, okay, this is when I should be at home. This is when I should be at work. This is when I like have downtime. And during my downtime, if you want to choose to scroll on social media, that's fine, right?
Yep.
That's up to you. But
Yeah, not letting it control you.
yeah, yeah, don't let it control you.
Hey, I was gonna ask you
Definitely. And
really quick. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and there are times that like undoubtedly I have been controlled by social media.
Oh, 100%. I think
Yeah,
we can kind of use that as an excuse being business owners saying, "Hey, I'm doing this for work,"
yeah,
and then I'm looking like, ah, crap, my favorite
yeah,
team's losing. So, but it is a hard balance because I don't think there's a balance in anything.
yeah.
Because if you're taking away from one, you're giving to the other.
Yep, yep. And it is, it's about setting boundaries, right?
Yeah, I want to go back. You don't mind asking like one of the questions that Ecos Holistic brought, kind of about giving. So I want to give you the first shot though. When he put, what are some of the creative ways to give back in your business? to you. So what does that kind of bring out to you?
Yeah, so for me, it's looking at like what your specialty is, right? And so it's like there's a handful of things. Thing number one, like let me go back to the last company I worked for, right? One of the things I did was I was on sales calls a lot, right? I was like over sales and marketing. And so I was on sales a lot, talking to people about how they like why they should hire us as their agency, right? And what I would do is like before I got on the phone call with them, I'd look at their social presence, see what it looked like, right? And see like first and foremost, can I help you, right? Like maybe they're already in a really good spot, maybe they're not, but I would look and see if we could help them. If we could, great. I would have the sales call, I'd give the pitch, and it was a fairly expensive monthly service, but one that was well worth it, right? But frequently they'd go, I just can't afford it, right? And I'm like, totally get it. And then I would say, hey, if it's okay with you, can I just like take 10 minutes and give you some advice on what I would do to get your social spaces to a really good spot? And then when you're ready, let's have the conversation about working together. But let me give you some steps before you work with us to get you to a good spot so that when we get a hold of it, we can just take off like rocket ship, right? And so I would always try to give back at the like the I don't want to say the lowest possible level, but I would give back and say, hey, listen, this is exactly what I would do to build your social spaces to be a good spot and have a good presence, right? And they were always very, very appreciative. And then sporadically, right, Jimmy, like we talked about earlier about giving back, I would frequently stay in contact with them. And then as I'm watching their social spaces, if I saw something that I'm like, and I would ask them for permission. I'm like, hey, do you mind if I follow you? And then if I see something, can I just reach out to you and just like ping you and say, hey, maybe try this? And like every single time they're like, absolutely, right? And so it was really cool because I could build that relationship. I could network with these people. And then, of course, naturally, when they were ready to like make the jump, guess where they'd come back
Yep.
to? They'd come back to me because I already gave to them multiple times over. And they're like, okay, not only did he tell me to do something, I did it and I grew, right? Things grew. And so he knows what he's talking about. So it adds validity to what I'm saying. But then I was able to give back and help them in some small way, right? So for me, like that was just a small example of I'm like, okay, cool, this is how I'd give back. Like in Ecos Holistic in Brandt's case, right? For Ecos Holistic Healing, for those of you who weren't with us, Brand does sound baths, right? He does vibration healing, and Brand's really good at this anyway. But some creative ways, right? Like have a free class, right? Like market the crap out of it. Get all your neighbors, right? Which I know you've done a couple different times, but it's like just do a straight give back, right? Like we're coming up on what holiday? Thanksgiving, right? Like have somebody like set up a form or get on your social spaces and say, hey, I want to give away 3 free sound baths, right? Like one-on-one 30-minute sessions or whatever. Like nominate somebody who you believe deserves, this free sound bath, right? You can put a value on it if you want to, right? This free $80 thing, right? Like nominate somebody, let's share their story, let's create some goodwill around what this person has done in the community. But then, oh, by the way, I'm also going to give them this freebie, right? So it gets
Hmm.
Brand's name out there. It gives the other person a chance to feel very, very special. You get some social proof. You get people sending you things, right? Like, so there's a variety of ways you can actually just take that one small ask and like put that like all over into like your digital campaigns that you're doing, right? So that's a really easy way to give back. Brant, we know is a vet as well. You could do special free or reduced classes for vets, right? Which I think is easy. You like this is more of a summertime thing. Like you literally could go to like we live in Eagle Mountain, right? So it's like no secret, but you could literally go out to the farmers market, which is at a park, set up in a corner and put up a sign that says free 10-minute sound bath or 15-minute sound bath, right? And like just give back to the community in that way, right? You're getting your name out there. People are going to wonder what's going on. So there's like some really cool grassroots movements you can do. And then, if you want to try to get into more business, I'll stop talking in a minute. I promise you. I don't know if I took your
No, I'm
ideas,
loving it.
but like one more thing, Brent, you could do is you just go like up and down the Wasatch Front and all, even throughout like our little town here in Eagle Mountain and Lehigh. There's a variety of businesses that do, yoga studios or I saw another one. There's another one down on Main Street, Lehigh. I don't remember what they do, but some places that would jive well with what you're doing, right? And just walk in there and be like, hey, like I'm a certified. I forget the name, but like I'm certified level 1, level 2. Like I will just love to do a give back. Like, can I tack on to the end of one of your classes? I'm going to come in and do it for free. Just like as a cool give back to your clients, right? You can upsell it however you want, but I'm going to donate my services to you to build value for your company and start to build relationships that way as well.
Love it.
Sorry, I talked a lot.
No, you're
Like,
good. You have good advice. That's why we ask you questions and we listen. We ask and listen.
yes,
Kind of like our wives do to us. They ask us and we listen. Well, actually, I guess it doesn't work that way.
my better half is
W-
definitely in the next room over. She's
w-
significantly
Right?
smarter than I am.
But yeah, I think it's giving back to the community is like the most important part
Yeah,
to helping your own business grow because when you're giving back, one, it goes back to the very beginning. Not only do you feel good about what you're doing, but people get to see the good that you're doing too, especially if it's sincere. Because you know when people are faking it
yeah.
to make it.
Yep, and I think Brant, you and I should probably have just a session offline. But I was just thinking, there's a variety of things you can do. I mean, there's going to be all sorts of like cool date night things you can do, right? Like you could run promotions where it's like a BOGO, right? Like a buy one get one free, right? Or like bring a guest. I don't know what you call like buy one bring a guest type of a deal, right? And like help expose other people to what you're doing. And so really like it's going to be about attention, right? So I put myself in a place where we can get the most attention possible. Super low hanging fruit. I always tell people with social media, but then it's like, hey, can you set something up, at like, like through like local religious things, right? Could you set up like a gym, right? There's just like a brand new gym that opened up down the street by Ridley's. It's like, hey, cool, do you have a space where I can come in and just give a give back, and try to bring people into your gym, and I'm going to give my services away for free. All I ask, by the way, when appropriate, it's like, hey, listen, like if it's okay, I would actually just love to leave a business card if somebody's interested, right? Like it's always great if you can work a win-win, right? But the more you give back, the more the universe is going to be like, cool.
Yep.
This person is a giver, and this person is going to get as well, right? Like you will. I've learned that you will almost always be in debt to the universe, right? You can call it the universe, you can call it a higher power. Like you will almost always be in debt because you will go about trying to do good, and somehow, some way, the universe is going to recognize that and give you more.
And it's amazing too, going back, all it takes is that one person who knows many.
Yeah,
And I can't tell you, there's been so many times where you go, I not even known somebody, you do something good for them, and then they know someone who knows 1,000
yeah,
people. So, and it's just taking that one spark just to get that fire going.
yep, 100%. Yeah, it's really good. I don't want to like beat a dead horse, but it's like, yeah. The matter of fact, the company that I'm working for now, I actually did a handful of social media things for them before I even started. And we built a really cool relationship, and it made a transition seamless. It just is all about giving.
It is 100%. Well, it's good to talk about now with what's coming up. You know,
Yeah,
Well, right now is a holiday where we say thanks for everything that we're grateful for before we get upset for things that we did not get. So,
yes, yes, right before the Christmas season. Oh, I love it. Well, Jimmy, I think it's been really, really good for us to come back on, tell people who we are, explain a little bit about what we do. And for those who don't know, and Jimmy, I'm pretty complete, so I do want to come to you. And we did already talk a little bit about mental health, but I would love to just throw it like we always do at the end of all of our podcasts. Give us a mental health minute, Jimmy, and tell us how we can improve our mental health just a little bit more this week than we did last week.
yeah, I'm trying to think. I knew that, do you know, it's so funny. I knew this question was going to be
Every
asked earlier
time,
today, and then I just completely spaced it off.
every time.
But let me know if I've already said this one. But have I talked about doing the small wins? Did we go over that?
I don't think so.
Because it's
No,
something
let's do it.
that's big on me. Sometimes just do the small wins. Appreciate it. Usually it's those small wins that get you through the day. It could be, someone who's struggling with depression. It could just be that they got up for the day, that they made themselves a sandwich. They went for a little walk. You told maybe that small win. You told your kids that you love them. Just recognize the small wins. And sometimes what's good is at the end of the day, you can always find something that was good.
Yeah.
It could be, do you know what? I made it home safely from work. You're going to be having a bad day, but at least you made it home safely. So look at the small wins. And if you look at one small win, and it's like Brandon said, make your
Yep.
bed. Yeah, I think I did a little mental health moment on that one. You come home to a made bed, but when you get home, just like I made it home safely. That's a win. So there we go.
Love it. Love it. All right. Hey, everybody. Thank you for being with us on the Open Source Entrepreneur. We will see you next week. However, it's Thanksgiving, so we may come at you at a different time and a different place, but we are committed to making sure that we help small businesses grow. And guys, for the love, we are coming up on Black Friday, and that's always crazy. Be kind to people, but even more important, Saturday is Small Business Saturday. Coming up not this Saturday, but the next after Thanksgiving is Small Business Saturday. So make sure you support a local entrepreneur. Guys, go out and be good. See you later.
See you guys.